Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome to Navigating the Gap. My name is Renee, and welcome back to our podcast. Now, last week we began a powerful conversation with Randy and Kim about the medical emergency that changed the direction of their lives. But the emergency was only the beginning. Today, we're picking up where we left off and talking about what happened afterward, the medical challenges, the trauma, the recovery, learning to choose themselves, Kim's trip to Paris, and ultimately the creation of the Lazarus Project. 4 years later, is that right, guys? 4 years later,
Yes.
Randy and Kim have had time to reflect on what happened, how they've healed, and what they've built from that experience. So today we're asking, what happens after the crisis? How do you recover? How do you find yourself? And how do you turn pain into purpose? Randy and Kim, welcome back.
Nice to be here, Renee.
Thanks.
Can I just mention that this is my brother and my sister in love? Okay, I just want to say that at the top of this conversation today. So Randy, we're gonna pick it up. We're gonna just jump right in. Let's pick it up from where we left off last week. Once the medical emergency was over, and I'm not saying over. I'm just saying like right at that beginning point. What did recovery actually look like for you? Was there a moment when you realized I can't rush this? I really have to give myself time to heal?
Yes, that's exactly what happened. I got home at the beginning of August, and even getting in and out of the car to get home was a challenge. I left the hospital, let's say, on a walker. Kimberly was there to pick me up. Got out. Oh, they wheeled me out, of course, to the front of the hospital, and I used the walker to get to the car. Was able to maneuvered my legs and everything to get into the car, because although I was leaving the hospital, I it would take me a few days to actually for my muscles to kind of regroup so that I could actually I began to use a cane maybe about 4 days after I got out of the hospital. But
Wow.
we got home on that first day, and I'll never forget. I got to the bottom of the steps, and I had to come up to get to the bedroom, and I had to each step stop to get myself together. It's the longest 13 steps, climbing steps for me, at that age. But
Wow.
after a few weeks, I got better. I didn't come down for the first few days. Kimberly had actually bought several lazy board chairs so that I could just get up and sit up in a chair. So therapy started slow, but in my mind, I'm thinking at first, man, I got to get back. I have to uh, make my way to get back to work, to get back in shape. I wanted to rush the process, and it took me a good maybe 2, 3 weeks before it kind of really dawned on me that I need to give my body the time to recover. And
Hmm.
when I made that mental shift, I relaxed. I said, I'm
Oh,
going to take this time to recover. And then
okay.
as I took the time to recover, of course, with that clarity, I also thought, let me take this time also to think about the direction of life and where I'm at and where I'm going. Do I even
Mhm.
want to go back to what I was doing? And I took that time, those
Wow.
months. Again, that was August of 2022, and I did not go back to work until I think February of 2023. So I
Oh
took
my
that
goodness.
time off, and that's where the idea, first and foremost, about church came. Do you know? Do I see myself going back to sitting in a church and not taking what God had already given me? the message, this love for people, wanting a heart to serve. I wanted to take that and go where the people were, like a missionary. And me and Kimberly talked about that, I believe, in January of 2023. And then we spoke to our bishop at the time, pastor of the church, and explained to him, that we would simply be in disobedience if we stayed where we were. So
Wow.
it was a
You
sense
felt really
of,
strongly about it.
yes, very strongly. Um, when you give yourself, and I think everybody owes it to themselves to take that time, however long it takes, to sit and really see where you're at, so that you can make better decisions moving forward.
So there was a lot of, from that, going up those 13 steps, but there was a lot of self-reflecting and like shifts, like right at that beginning of getting home. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, well, even an adjustment to my physical ability. I mean, once I got upstairs, laid into bed, it was even hard to pull sheets over me. It was hard to turn over. It was difficult to do everything, to eat, to get up out of the bed. I needed help getting up out of the bed. It was an adjustment period for everything.
So with that said, my question is, which was harder? Was it the physical recovery or the emotional recovery?
I would say for myself, well, it would be the physical recovery for me. It wasn't a emotional recovery. I think when you listen to Kimberly and I understand her story and listen to her, I again was a coma. I'm just going to say I was asleep, right?
Right.
So, she was awake every single day, dealing with the pressures of life,
Yes.
her own emotions, and then also doctors, visitors, family. That's a lot of pressure. And then, of course, me laying in the bed in the coma. That's emotional pressure.
Absolutely. I mean, you lead me right into my next question, and it's for you, Kim, because Randy, you just really set that up beautifully. It's like, Kim, while Randy was, as he said, laying in the bed, like sleep, for lack of, I mean, in a coma, but there was a lot going on, but he was missing it. He wasn't actually engaged in the way that you were. So he was in their bed and you were experiencing this from a completely different perspective, even though you both were experiencing it at the same time. What was happening inside of you that people may not have didn't see?
I can't say that. I have no idea because I know that people didn't see that. Okay, maybe one thing I think that people may not have seen. Last week I did talk about my day 18 when I know God showed me everything, and on the inside I knew that God was taking care of everything and everything was going to be well and it was going to be right and he was going to be okay. I knew that on the inside because I know what God has showed me.
Okay.
But looking at him and looking at everything, day 18, everything got worse. Things didn't get better. They literally continued to get worse for him. And so for me, although I knew what God said, there was still I would say a lot of pressure because, the doctors, when they come and they do their rounds, there was this one doctor, I called her gloom and doom because she was the one doctor that wore these high heel shoes doing her rounds, and I can hear her clicking when she's coming. And I would say, "Oh, here she comes, gloom and doom." And I'm saying this, and sometimes I said it out loud, and sometimes I said it in my head. But like out of 8 doctors, she would be the only one that would be like, this just doesn't look good. And
Oh,
basically you're going to have to deal with this because this just doesn't look good. Where all the other doctors were very optimistic, they weren't, they were very much trying to keep me in a place that I didn't fall apart, because they would say things to me like, things are not worse, things are still the same, and as long as they're not worse, as long as what's happening is not worse, we are okay. And so it was a lot of that, although reading the tea leaf, reading what they just didn't want to say what gloom and doom really was saying.
right.
um
You had one
so
doctor that was that's telling it like it was for real.
exactly.
In
Yeah.
her opinion. You
In
think?
her opinion, exactly. Absolutely. It was in her opinion. And then you had other doctors, they were just coming, they were doing their rounds, they were saying what they had to say, doing the things that they needed to do. And this one surgeon, every time she came, she would always sit down next to me. And she was so comforting, just the way she would talk to me. And she would just say, you know, he's not, he's not progressing, but he's not getting worse. And so as long as there, he's not getting worse, we're going to be okay with that. And so she was always very comforting, and I just appreciate that so much. And so I can say that what people may not have seen was on the inside, I knew what God said, but it was still a lot of crying. It was still a lot of,
Okay.
a lot of crying, readily, because I'm still looking at this person that I love, this person who, there was a time, even though he was unconscious, I would come in and I would start talking to him and I would squeeze his hand. And at first he would squeeze my hand back, and then it got less and less.
Oh, so he would squeeze your hand back? What? And
At
was
one,
he in a coma?
he was in a coma, and he would come in. And I was also during a time where, when they're checking your reflexes, and they would check his feet and check his knees, and he still had reflexes at that time, at one time. And then at some point, he had no reflexes. Like there was no feeling in his feet, didn't move, like the things that they were scraping him with, nothing in his knees, no, that his nothing, no reflexes moved at all. And that's around the time that he also, would stop squeezing my hand. Like he would do whatever the doctors told him. Also, if the doctor says, "Can you hear me? Can you squeeze my hand?" And at one time he would do it.
Okay.
And at some point he was he didn't anymore. He wasn't squeezing my hand. And I'm coming in, I'm talking to him every day. And so I'm like, "Just let me know that you're here." And I'm squeezing your hand, and he would squeeze back. And then at some point, he wasn't even doing that anymore. So, yeah. And I don't know if I even answered your question, but
You answer. I mean, go ahead.
No, I want to say this because I kept laughing about those steps when Randy was talking. Because there was this moment right before he came home that I got to the bottom of the steps, and I literally stopped and I turned around and I looked and I was like, "God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get him up these steps?"
Oh my goodness.
And I just remember his first day coming home, when we were coming in, he's using his walker and I'm helping him and I'm in front of him and everything. And we got to those steps. And I was like, "Okay, no, we got to do this. We got to." And he was basically like, "I'm not using this cane. I'm not using this walker. I'm just getting up these steps." And so, your typical brother,
Exactly. I'm doing it the way
I'm
I
just
want to
doing it.
Yep.
Exactly. So, yeah.
And that's what he did. And you
And that's what he did.
there, and you walked up them steps with him.
Yes. Yep.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And you did answer the question because you said I mean my question was like people can't look at you and see that. So you kind of have to tell the story of things you were going through.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And just to go from you said how powerful day 18 was because God gave you that word, but to also say that the circumstances and what you were seeing did not match what
No.
he told you. And so you also had, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but it seems like you had like some hope in there, even though you're.
That is the perfect word. That is absolutely the perfect word. There was hope.
Mm,
Yeah. And not that I ever didn't have hope, but it was the knowing for me.
yeah,
I had hope,
yeah,
but day 18 gave me a knowing. Like, I know what you said, God. I know you. I hear you. So for me, it was a knowing. Like, I know what you said and what's going to happen now. And
wow,
so it got worse. And again, I still cried because I'm looking at this person and I'm looking at tubes and tubes everywhere. And so
right.
yeah, it got worse, but there was a knowing, and I knew. Yeah.
So just okay. So if I'm recalling correctly, I'm just going to say it was it 43 days in a coma.
I think it's 42 days, and
42 days.
it was 42 days, yeah, that he was in the coma. Yes.
So day 18 was kind of literally almost like a halfway point. It was like
Hmm.
another, but still you had to live through that promise that God had given you another almost 20 some days
Right. Right.
before he actually woke up out of the coma. So, wow. That to me, to say you had to wait in that space for almost another month, if
Hmm.
you look at it, and have that kind of hope. I mean, I don't. That's some of us. I'm just gonna speak for myself. One day sometimes seem like it's too long, and it's just like you know. So
Yeah.
that is amazing that you were able to stand in that way. So it brings me. So with that said, I'm just going to say, looking back, and I'm going to say this question for both of you. But Kim, you can carry on from here. Is looking back at those first few months. Um, and we're just talking about it. But what do you remember most? Was it the fear? Was it the confusion? Was it anger? Was it hope? Or all of that? I mean, you know, and I think it's interesting to me. I mean, it made me think about Maya Angelou when she said, like, the one thing that people remember is how you made them feel. And when
Hmm.
you talked about that one doctor that sat down and would talk to you and how they made you feel when they were communicating, it made me think about what her saying that is really you do remember that out of.
Yeah.
So what was which one of those kind of stood out to you that you remember?
I I don't know which word it is just yet, but let me say this. This is one of the biggest things that, looking back, that stuck out to me, is because I used to tell God, Lord, we support everyone and no one seemingly supports us.
Mm,
And during this time, the support that I had, the way people rallied around us was amazing. It was simply incredible. I
mm,
couldn't have I couldn't have thought that up. I couldn't have um I don't even know if I could have asked God to bring that kind of um I don't want to call it camaraderie, but just the way people just stepped in and just rallied. And I do mean rallied around us with prayer, with just being that their presence, just being there for us.
Mm,
There were so many just small things that were so impactful. And I think probably the biggest thing is just the way just our community, that I didn't even realize how big it was.
yeah.
um just how they really just came together for us. I am still in awe of it. I really
Wow.
am. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So you said you didn't realize how big your community was.
I
So
didn't. I didn't.
how far
I
your reach.
honestly no, because again, I was complaining to God, we support everyone. We're always there for everyone. And,
Right.
it doesn't seem like anyone supports us, or when we need to call on others, they don't seem to, do the same for us. And there was this one particular time, and this was more recent. It wasn't during this time of, when during the medical crisis, but again, because I complain to God all the time. But this one particular time, I was complaining about, people not supporting, people not,
Uh-huh.
and God, He told me, and it was so clear, I called you to support.
Oh
And
wow.
so that's what you do. And it
Okay.
was like, okay, yes. Thank you,
Okay.
Lord. Thank you, God. Okay. Yes, you
Got
did.
it. Instructions. Okay.
Got it. Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And you did. You
Yeah.
supported. Just
Yeah.
imagine you supported
Yeah.
your husband, but your whole family. It was your children, your grandchildren, like extended family. A lot of people were dependent on you during that time.
You don't even, I don't even look at it like from
Yeah,
that aspect.
I
But
know. I know you don't. And I don't mean like you had to do things for people. I think that when I say that, I mean that hope that, and I didn't know about day 18 until you talked about it last week. But I
Mhm.
will say, just as a sister, I will say, seeing that you were okay, it it helped me to feel okay.
Yeah.
So when I say that, that's all I mean by it. I don't
No,
mean
and
you know what I mean. You didn't have
yeah.
to do anything, but I mean, even, and I'm not saying you had to be perfect. I'm just, even in your crying, or just you shared yourself, and that helped the rest. Or I will just speak for myself again, who could not be there at his bedside. To know what was going on. You were the heartbeat. You were what is you serve. That's how I see it. I feel like you were serving. God gave you instructions. You were doing that for Randy, for yourself, but I feel like it extended out to your community as well. That's what I meant by that.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
understand that. Okay. I can understand.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Did you want to say something, Randy? You look like it.
Well, that's what we're here to do, say stuff. But
Well, you had a look on your face like you were leaning in to share something.
okay.
But Kim, I think did you answer my question, like which one of those, if it was fear, confusion, anger, hope, or something else that really stood out for you during that time, or
The
all of
most, I have to say it was all of it, because it's not like I didn't go through all of those things and probably daily
it? Yeah,
also.
yeah,
So I would say all of them. I can't specifically say one was more prevalent or than any of the other ones, because they were daily. All of them probably were daily. So yeah, I would say all. Absolutely.
okay, okay. And Randall, when you started, even now, when you start reflecting on that time, is it a certain point for Kim, it was day 18. Is it certain point that you really, because you were like out of it, like you said, asleep or in the bed or in a coma for a long time. But do you have like a day that you can say, I can start like my awareness of what's going on started around this time? Is there a time?
Sure. It would be July 3rd, the day the Lord, I'll say, brought me out of the coma, and I came to full consciousness. And I'm in a room, and at first everybody was blurry, but I could hear people talking, and then my eyes cleared up, and people became clear, and I couldn't speak. I wasn't 100% sure why I couldn't speak. Later, I found there was a trach in my throat, and so I couldn't speak. And I'm laying there, I can't move, and everybody's had smiles on their faces, and they're talking, and I became aware of what was going on. I think from that day, just it seemed like just in a second. I had to really get adjusted, because it was like 2 seconds ago I was in the backyard with Kim, and now I'm laying in bed and I can't speak, and people had to tell me what happened and why I'm there, and that was a surreal moment, and then the next night, because they put me I think it was on the 4th floor, it had a big window. And it was July 4th, and there's fireworks,
Oh, wow.
And I could see the fireworks from the bed, and so it was never like Kimberly has that day 18 with the Lord. It wasn't for me anything like that. It was just trying to come fully back to consciousness, back to getting my feet on the floor, and that took a minute. Not being able to speak or move kind of holds you back, and you gotta really take a minute to let that sink in. So once it all began to sink in a few days later, from that point, I really just was okay. I got to get up out of this bed. I got to get back in shape. Like I said earlier.
Get back in shape? You had already started thinking that?
In shape in the sense that I could get up out of the bed,
Okay. Okay. All right.
I wasn't eating, couldn't do anything. So I just wanted to get at least back to where I could take the full agency. I could take care of myself.
Yeah.
At least that. Maybe not in shape, but at least that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one day that seems like a conversation, even for I don't know. I don't want to say does that have to do with being a man or a woman, but just the fact that that thought was to get yourself back to where you were, like you're immediately, instead of kind of sitting there and reflecting on what has just happened to me, you're just like, I need to get up out this bed.
Yeah.
And that is that to me is mental strength also, because I think that is just your mindset has a lot. I mean, we know this. I did not create this. We're told how much our mindset and our mental has to do with how we approach things and how we face life, trauma for one. And if that's your first thought, I think that is pretty amazing. It's just, yeah. Were you going to say something, Kim?
No.
Okay. So now we're going to keep on moving through this process, and trauma is a thing that doesn't just go away. It doesn't just okay, I'm back home, everything is fine, and the trauma is gone. So I'm gonna change gears a little bit and talk about trauma and choosing yourself, and why is that important? How do you do that? Sometimes the crisis ends, but the trauma doesn't end when the ambulance leaves or the hospital doors closes. So, Randy, do you recognize at the time that you were carrying trauma, or did you understand it later? Like during that process, I know what you said, like you wanted to get out of the bed, you needed to move forward with things, but did you recognize at some point like that you were carrying trauma from everything that was going on that had just happened, or was it later on in your process that you realized it?
I would have to say later on. I didn't have the words trauma at the time. I wouldn't have labeled it trauma. Looking back, of course, everything that I went through, I would label it now as trauma, and especially what we understand about trauma and how the body keeps account of every trauma incident that you go through. Your
Yes.
physical body keeps account. Well, my physical body had went through so much, so 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 now that I have the words, looking back, I would use the words that I have now. I did not have then. Is that what I would say? How to heal from trauma, or like the opposite of trauma, and the healing of trauma is resilience. And some of that was already there in that sense of I've got to get back, but it was also in no, I need to take the time to push back against trying to rush to get back, and take my time to contemplate, think about where I'm at, allow my body to heal and recover. And that's all of that is resilience. Resilience is,
Absolutely.
well, maybe the trauma doesn't go away. Maybe I'm not fully healed, but I'm going to stay the course. I'm going to continue down this path. I'm going to not cave in on myself, but just continue to put one foot in front of the other, and moving in this spiritual, physical, emotional journey. So that's resilience.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Now, Kim, what did trauma look like for you? Were you able to talk about it, or did you have to process much much of it in private?
Uh, in the beginning, I couldn't talk about it. And so for me, okay, so this is how it kind of came about and how it started. Because Randy, was unconscious all of this time, he wanted to know, well, what happened? Tell
Hmm.
me what you saw. Tell me what happened to me. And so I could tell him, I could tell him things. I could tell him, like as things came up, I could tell him what was happening or what had happened. But when he started with, we need to write this out, we need to write a book, we need to write this
Oh wow.
story,
Wow.
that's when it became, no, this is too much. I
Okay.
can't I can't do this right now. And
Okay.
at first I kept saying, okay. I kept saying, yes, we'll do it. Okay. But I kept pushing it off, putting it off, waiting until he pushed to the point of, no, we need to do this now. And that's when I realized that I can't, I can't do this, because
Wow.
every time I started getting into I want to call it the weeds of it, to get into the more details of what actually happened, it felt like I was reliving things.
Oh.
So
Okay.
that's what it felt like for me. Like I'm
Okay.
reliving those days of being in the hospital, of seeing you the way I saw you.
Wow.
I felt my body felt that. I felt it in like my body was holding on to that. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have those words at that time, but I realized those triggers that would come every time he was pushing me to say, hey, let's write this.
Hmm.
And I was pulling back and I was pulling away because it was too hard.
Yeah.
And I finally had to say, I can't do it. I can't do this right now.
Yeah.
Maybe sometime in the future, but I cannot do this. And that's when he said, okay, I need to back away. I need to back off. I need to not pressure you to do this because he saw it. He saw how it was affecting me, that
Yeah.
pressure that he was putting on me to say, let's write this book.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And,
I was,
and
go ahead.
and let
Go
me
ahead.
let me say I saw it because, and I'm not speaking for all men, but I was being told, not right now, not right now. All right, well, let's make a deadline. Let's get this done. And but then when I was told I can't do it because of this, I couldn't read that out. I couldn't read her mind. I couldn't, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
that's when I stopped pushing because it's like, yep, all right, that's too much for you, and I'm going to let it go. And I did. I dropped it. You know, book or
Wow.
not, we don't need it if it's going to hurt you. So I let
Oh.
that go. But I needed to hear. I'm not going to say the truth, but I needed for her to finally get to the point where it's like, why am I putting this off? And then I guess she thought about it, and she came to that conclusion, and she told me. So, yeah,
Oh.
just needed to
That
hear.
that sounds like some marriage communication skills happening right there, because if you're not listening, if you she told you, but if you're not really listening, that could have really been, and this is just someone on the outside looking in, that could have really been a deal breaker after going through something so traumatic. If you didn't hear her, she sat in a total different seat than you did during this trauma, this experience that you guys are journeying through, and then you come to this point. I just feel like that could have been like a deal breaker, like a like a trauma on top of the trauma. If Randy, you didn't hear her, and if Kim, you didn't get the words to share with him so that he could hear.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it just seems like to me on the
Oh,
outside.
you're right. You're absolutely right. We all have to think about why are we giving the answers we're giving. Maybe go a little deeper
Right.
to let the other person, the spouse, know. Well, here's my why, and now they can actually make a better decision on their own, and of course have empathy and meet you where you need to be met. But no one, man or woman, can read another person's mind. You know.
That seems very powerful, you guys. I mean, we won't talk about it now, but to me, that seems like a key or a tool in marriage counseling that you would have to share with people who, I mean, something like what you guys went through is so traumatic, but I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna say it like that. I wouldn't want to rush over that. Like, to me, that is like, I don't know if the book has gotten written yet, but I will say the fact that you were able to set that whole thing aside and keep moving forward together is powerful. Also,
Yeah. No, the book still has not been written. Um, we, it's been a journey because these these past month maybe
Mhm.
we've probably picked this back up more this past month than we've done, and I say I maybe consistently done in the last maybe 2 years,
okay.
maybe.
I would say 2 years also,
Yeah.
because Renee, prior to us making this date with you to do these interviews, we were asked to come to a church to give our interview, to give our testimony. Pardon me. Um, uh, last on August the 11th.
Okay.
So, that date was set 2 months and a half ago. So
Okay.
yes, so it's just been we've
And
just
you all
been
talked
dealing.
about you talked about your journey through the medical crisis.
Yes, we
Right.
did. Yes, we
Hmm.
did.
Okay.
hmm And the Lazarus Project. So
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And is that you're saying like that was like a first in ever or a first in a
That
long
was
time?
well,
the
no, I have been, I've gone to the prison a few times. I've visited a church, two churches where the church was praying for me, and
Okay.
this was I was by myself. This was maybe in the second year of leaving. This is 2023, 2024. I've given my side of the testimony. Me and Kim together. I believe this is the first time we've
that
done it.
was that was the first time we've done it together. A year ago, I believe it was, I gave my testimony about it for the first time, but just last week was the first time that we had actually done something like that together.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. So so that brings me right to my question for both of you. So I'm going to say it like this. There came a point where you each had to start choosing yourself.
Mm.
So this is about your journey. And you both just shared how you have shared about this testimony on your own terms. What did that mean for each of you? And was choosing yourself difficult?
I
No,
can, uh,
no, you go ahead, Kim.
yes, choosing myself was difficult because leaving the hospital did not end uh, everything for me. It was sort of a new beginning once we left the hospital
Mhm.
because it was months of physical therapy, occupational therapy, and I had to be there. I had to take him to everything, every doctor's visit. So it was leaving the hospital was in the hospital was one aspect of it. Once we got home, that was a whole nother portion of it.
Right.
So completely different things to deal with now. And everything, was me. Everything I had to do everything for him. Like, he really had to learn how to hold his hands. He had to learn how to eat again, using his hands. Everything he had to relearn how to do. And so, even though he left the hospital, going to occupational therapy, of course, all of this stuff helped, but it was a lot of practice. And it took months um, of doing this. And even after he was done with occupational therapy and still going to therapy,
Yeah.
you know, he couldn't drive. And
Mhm.
I can remember the first time that he was actually driving somewhere by himself. And I believe you might have been driving yourself to therapy one day. And I think the drive is maybe like 12 minutes, but
Okay.
I was on pins and needles just for him.
Mhm.
This is the first time he was driving.
Yeah. Oh,
And
okay.
and just the thought of he's out. He's doing something without me for the first time.
Wow.
That, that's that was heavy. That was heavy.
Yeah.
And so how do you change that mindset? How do you get to, okay, he's okay. These are things that he has done all his life, and he's now just going back to doing what he knows, and he is okay.
Hmm.
And for me to not to not be a basket case, because that's what I was while he's doing these things.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
and I went back to work months before he went back to work. And
Okay.
so even my first day going back to work and leaving him in the house by himself, it was, for me, it was a complete nightmare at work.
Mhm.
I
Really?
couldn't, it was because I was sitting at my job and I hadn't been there in 6 months. And I was sitting there and I was like, what am I supposed to be doing here? I don't know what to do here.
Oh,
And this is a job that I've been at for 30 something years.
wow. Wow.
And yeah, so
Major adjustment to everything.
major adjustments to everything. My team that I left, when I left 6 months ago, I came back to a completely different team. There were 3 out of 10 people. I was the third person out of our group of 10 who was left. So I came back to a whole new work group. So many life changes, just
Yeah.
changes. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So,
That's incredible. Now,
Yes.
I had answered the question when you first said it, and then I let Kim go. But
Yeah.
I said yes,
You
and
did.
Kim said no,
Yeah.
because my experience, even in the hospital, once they moved me down from my room and said, "Okay, you're going to go to," I forgot what kind of therapy it was called, maybe advanced therapy, um, but so they put me in a room. Kim and I think Keisha was there,
Okay.
and they set the room up, and then they left. I was on my own. I was in the room by myself. I had to, and in the morning, I was expected to kind of get myself into. They first helped me get into the wheelchair to wheel myself to the therapy. And I was in
Oh, wow.
there, and it's tough, and I'm trying to, do the things that they want me to do. And I was
Yeah.
in therapy, I think maybe 2 weeks, Kim, maybe two. I think we got the numbers somewhere, but it
mhm.
was maybe 2.5 weeks I was in the therapy there. But I felt by myself. They would come during the day sometimes, but then they would leave at night. Then when I
Okay.
was home, me and Kim are empty nesters. The kids are gone,
Yeah.
so I was by myself. So it was like, yes, it was. I went back to being on my own to answer the question. And I was just trying to get things done. And then I decided to, again, relax, give myself the time, to my body the time. So I felt that, yes, I just went back to being on my own. Kim, it's just amazing how she answered it and how I answered it. The same experience,
Yeah. Yeah.
the same incident, but two
Exactly.
different perspectives in the same house. So
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Two different, and you guys were in the same, but you also had different perspectives of going through it. And I'm thinking about you, Randall, those first couple days of them putting you in the room and you having to do, you're not in there crying by yourself. Like, how am I going to get out this bed? How am I going to get in a wheelchair? How am I going to get myself somewhere to get breakfast? Was that hard?
I wasn't crying. Actually, when I think about it, I got a little upset. I'm like, man, they just left me. Like, they just walked out. Wait a minute. So I was a little upset, but then it's like, well, you're here to get better. So I went to sleep.
That was intentional. They wanted that. They wanted you to get in your mind that you have to do this for you.
Yes.
And
And
so,
you do.
yeah.
You do.
So
You have to have that mindset that I've got to put the work in to get the results I want. And it is that simple.
they showed like I walked with him and they showed us where he needed to go each morning, the days that where he needed to go. But they didn't come around and like, okay, it's time for you to go to your session now. No, we told you your session starts this time. Get yourself here.
Oh,
And
man.
I didn't know this at the time. I just assumed they were taking him there. No, he had to get himself there.
Wow.
I mean, it was the same floor. It was around the corner,
Yeah.
but he still had to do it for himself.
for himself.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we're talking about choosing yourself. And again, I mean, there was another time, Kim, that you talked about having to leave the hospital because they